Boker Tov Rabotai, this is Rabbi Kovacs, and it is the 26th day of the Omer. We are continuing the Mishnah Yomi. Yesterday we started the third parak of Sheviit, and now we are into the third Mishnah. And you'll see there's a bit of a review from the second Mishnah, all about everything you wanted to know about dung heaps but never smelled. And Mishnah Gimel, Ose Adam et Sadehu Shalosh Ashpatot Lebeit Seah, Yeter Mikan Miachatziv Divrei Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Shimon is saying is you can make 3 piles, which we said in Mishnah Base, that was the opinion, and then Yeter Mikon Machziv. More than this, you should make them kind of like the legs of a triangle. And this is the words of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon was makel to have more than 3 piles. Recall from our explanation yesterday, if you have a lot of little piles scattered all over a field, it looks a bit like fertilizing, which we do not do on Sheviit. But if you're simply stacking them in piles and it looks like they're for storage, that would be allowed on Sheviit. You're just storing your dung in the dung heap. Chachamim osrim, again, so continuing the Mishnah, Chachamim do not allow more than 3 piles. Ad sheya'amik shlosha. But now they have a qualifier until you dig down 3 tefachim, 3 hands breadths into the ground. O ad sheyagbia shlosha. Or you raise it up like on a platform or a rock works, 3 tefachim above the surface of the field. So if you had a little rock or a little deck or a little basin in the ground and you put the dung heap there, then it doesn't look like you're fertilizing because it's not even with the rest of the surface of the field. So then the sages would agree to Rabbi Shimon, if you have this, what we call a heker in halacha, something that's noticeable, then you'd be allowed to have more than 3 dung heaps in your field. Mishnah continues, Ose Adam et Zivlo Otzar. You could make your zevel one big pile, like a big treasury of dung, a really big dung heap. Rabbi Meir Oser says, no, don't make one big pile. Ad sheyamik shlosha o ad sheyagvia shlosha. Until you go down 3 tefachim or up 3 tefachim, so it's not even with the field, to have a heker. Hayelo devar muat. If he only has a little bit of dung, Mosif alov v'cholach. So you could start bringing a little bit of dung to the field and then add more and keep going and adding more and more. Elazar says you don't want to bring a little bit of dung. If he only has a little bit of dung, he has to keep it in the barn until he's got quite a bit of dung. We had said like 10 letech, a pretty good amount, before he starts piling it on the field, because if you're just putting a little bit of dung in the field, it does look like fertilizing. So Rabbi Elazar said, if he only has a little, don't bring it until you have again this heker. Or put it onto a rock. If you put it on top of a rock, then it doesn't look like you're fertilizing, so you could temporarily store a little bit of dung onto a rock until he has enough to make a bona fide good dung heap. Continuing with Mishnah Daled, Hamadayer et Sadehu. So one makes a deer on his sadeh. Here the deer means a pen of animals. So he's going to put animals on his field so they can graze. And the issue is the animals are going to be creating dung and fertilizing as they're on this field. So how does he make it look like he doesn't want them to fertilize the field? And he's going to go back. We're going to see at the end of the Mishnah, he's going to go back and collect the dung and stack it properly in dung heaps later. But in the meantime, he wants his animals to be able to graze in his field without, following after them and picking them up after them. So what does he do? Osei sahar lebeit sitaim. He makes a pen, which is beit sitaim, is a 2 seah area. Oker shalosh ruchot mnichatem site. So he pens them in with a pen, and then afterwards, after they've grazed there and done their business there, so he takes off 3 sides of the pen, of the fencing or the rope or the wire, whatever it was, and he leaves the middle. So what's he doing is now he's moving the fence over to the other side. So it's as if he had a rectangle the size of 2 setaim on the right, and then he takes off the top and the bottom and the right side of this rectangle, takes that fencing and moves it over to the left, making the mirror image, leaving that middle fence in place. So he moves the animals over there to the left-hand side of this field. Nimsa Medayar Beit Arba'an Sein. So he started off with 2 seah fenced in, they used that area, they grazed there, and then he moves all the animals over to the other side. So he's basically had his animals grazing and browsing in 4 seah total, and he goes back and he picks up the dung. From Shimon Gamliel Omer, Beit Shmuel, let's say, he says you can actually do this over an area of 8, and what he's doing is he's making sort of 4 squares. He's got a square with 4 squares in it, and he rotates the grazing of the animals and picking up the dung in each section as they change sections. Haytakul Sadehu Beit Arbaat Sain, if his entire field was 4 seah, which is the original shear, Mishayim Mimena Mixas. You have to leave a little bit over. You can't pen in the entire field, because then it simply looks like you're letting your animals fertilize entire fields. You leave some out of their pen, Maris Ayin, because people are going to see that the animals are fertilizing the whole field and think you're one of those guys that, God forbid, works on Sheviit. Motzi et min sachar v'notin l'til chasadehu k'derech hazokmin. And once the animals have done their business there, then you take out of the pen the zevel, the fertilizer, and you put it into your field, k'derech hazokmin, like we said in the last two Mishnayot, stacked up in the proper dung heaps. Shkoyach.